On to the Bulldogs. Their woes continued. Another disappointing loss versus Manly on the weekend. 42-24 on Sunday. Didn't look like Manly got out of second gear. They didn't have Garrick, they didn't have Turbo, they didn't have Lawton, they didn't have Paseka, they didn't have Lodge, they didn't have Osho Ole. Never gets old to me.
Nah.
They have had injury woes, but not that many. Like
the Dogs
they're at full strength
throughout the year, they have had some issues. Like Kikau was out for a long time. Josh Addo-Carr's been out with injury at different stages. They've struggled to field a full strength team for a large portion of the year. But on the weekend and in the last couple of weeks, they have been pretty close to their full strength, 17. Whether I agree with all of the selections or not is a different story. They had a couple of centres out on the weekend, Jacob Kiraz and Braden Burns, but when you're getting blown away 42-24 by a team that's also missing the 8 and got a lot of players and some real quality players missing through injury, that's some alarm bells for Canterbury.
Their points difference is minus 327.
Yeah, that's pretty disgraceful.
So the next worst is West Tigers at minus 248. Gee whiz.
Yeah, so my biggest concern with the Bulldogs this year is that their first half of the year, they were competing in a lot of games. They won some games. They beat Melbourne as well, which was a really big win. They had a win over South Sydney during the Origin period as well, when South had a lot of players out more recently. But their second half of the year has been really disappointing. Whereas you look at last year, they sacked Trent Barrett halfway through the year because they weren't going very well. And they went on to play some really good footy in the back half of the year under Mick Potter. Now, I know Cam Ciraldo's only in his first year. It's going to take a while to implement some of the things he's bringing across from Penrith. But the main thing, the main talking point about Cam Ciraldo was his defensive structures. And, a lot of that is effort areas. And, he's coming for a club with a lot of success. But, they talk about what he brings to the club, but you're not seeing it at the moment. So players clearly aren't buying into what Cam Ciraldo is selling.
It was interesting what Ciraldo said in the post-match presser, where basically he said it's all effort. That's the big thing for them. So they finished on 7 wins last year.
They're going to finish on 7 wins.
They're on 7 now. Yeah. I don't know. I find it tough to say they're a better team than last year.
Yeah, and they've also added
way better cattle.
They've added some pretty quality players this year. Reid Marnie, coming from a grand final winning team. I know Viliami Kikau's missed a lot of the year, so that hasn't helped. He's chewing up A, a fair bit of their cap, and B, he was one of their marquee signings. Luke Thompson obviously was out for a lot of the year, and he's on big money, and he's someone that's had a really disrupted run at Canterbury and looks like he's probably going to move on at the end of the year. So they haven't been without their issues, but there's other teams that have struggled in that department as well. The Tigers and the Dragons, I know they're sitting behind the Bulldogs at the moment, but if you look at their second half of the year compared to maybe their first half of the year, the Tigers and the Dragons have probably scratched and clawed a little bit harder than the Dogs have, and they've been probably hampered more by injury, in the second half of the year than they were in the first half. So yeah, look, the Dogs might be sitting on 7 wins, but as far as I'm concerned, they're probably the worst team in the comp right now.
Yeah, that's fair. It's interesting. So with the text messages that were doing the rounds, everyone said, what was it, 8 players who reportedly wanted out. Dogs are saying it's probably more like 4. The players are copping a lot of the heat at the moment, but as Rugby League news cycle goes, eventually it will fall on Ciraldo, who has a little bit of a grace period, because as you said, it's his first year, did a lot of great things.
Out of a 5-year deal as well.
Yeah. Do you think, though, let's get ahead of the news cycle here, has Phil Gould backed the wrong horse in Cameron Ciraldo?
I think it's too early to say that, but if you look at results this season, Andrew Webster is in his first year at the Warriors, and they were predicted by a lot of people, myself included, to finish in the bottom 4, perhaps with the wooden spoon, whereas Canterbury were, probably thought by a lot of people would push for a top 8 spot, maybe finish between 9th and 11th, and instead they're going to finish in 15th spot, and their second half of the year has been pretty horrendous. So if you look at it from a purely results perspective based on a 1-year sample, then yeah, obviously Andrew Webster coming out of that Penrith system has been a better signing from a coaching perspective than Cam Ciraldo, but Ciraldo's got a 5-year deal.
Yeah.
There's a plan there. They're recruiting some players. They've added quite a few players for next year. Obviously, Stephen Crichton is the big one, but they're adding some depth around him. Siwa Takiaho is coming back from the UK and looks like he's probably landing at the Dogs. So they're they're adding some players from good clubs that are, maybe playing backup roles like Blake Taff and Jamin Salmon. I know Kurt Mann's also been linked to the Bulldogs now as well. So they're picking at the scraps here and there, and they're adding some big names. But eventually the pressure will come onto the coach because they're recruiting a team, and the pressure will come on to Gus as well.
Yeah,
because he's signing a lot of these players. A lot of the players they signed was before.
Man's Teflon.
Yeah, it was before Serraldo was there that he signed a lot of these marquee players like Matt Burton and Josh Adokar, Reid Marnie, Viliame Kikau. They were all signed well before Cam Serraldo came in as coach. But the pressure is going to fall onto them if come round 6, round 8 next year if the Bulldogs aren't improving. There certainly will be pressure.
Makes sense. I'm interested to see how Jamin Salmon goes.
I'm not sure where he's going to play. I would assume he'd play off the bench and maybe back row, similar to what he's done at Penrith, but he's kind of found himself in and out of the Penrith team at the moment. Blake Taft is another one. I don't really know where he's being signed to play. He could possibly play in the centres. He's got a lot of speed, but I don't think
Has he ever played in the centres?
I don't think so, but I mean, I'm just trying to figure out where he's going to play because he's not a halfback.
Yeah.
And they've signed Toby Sexton until the end of next year. Whether they think he's their long-term guy or not remains to be seen. Obviously, Burden's got the 6 wrapped up, and they've signed Stephen Crichton on pretty reasonable money to come in and play fullback. So, I don't know where Blake Taft's going to play. And then, like, Kurt Mann, is a good 14 or, good lock forward as well. But, they're signing blokes that I'm not entirely sure what their roles are going to be, but who knows? Maybe Serraldo and Gus have a plan that we don't know about. Sign as many players as you can and worry about it later.